Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I'm Ashwin from Ashwin's Tech Talks, and today we're going to be discussing a major built-in data type in Python known as strings. We're also going to discuss some methods on how to manipulate, access the various elements, and display strings into your Python launcher. Now, this is part one of a three-part mini-series on strings. Now, setting that aside, let's get on with the video, guys. So you might be wondering, what are strings? Strings are just arrays of bytes representing Unicode characters. And Unicode characters are just letters from A to Z, either uppercase or lowercase, numbers 0 to 9, and a few other symbols. And characters in strings can include letters, numbers, and even spaces. And especially spaces, because in Python, spaces can also be defined as an individual character of a string. Now, we can define a string or create a string in Python by enclosing a certain set of characters with single or double quotation marks. It's just that you have to enclose them with the same type. You can't mix them up. Otherwise, you will result in a Python error. Let's look at the following example. We have the string hello world enclosed by double quotation marks. That's a string. We have the string Python enclosed by single quotation marks. We have the string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's still a string because it's enclosed by single quotation marks. That's how Python recognizes the data type string. Now, another important point about strings is that if you have two strings with the exact same characters, then they're equal to one another. It does not matter if you enclose them with single or double quotation marks. For example, we have the string coding enclosed by double quotation marks. That is the same as the string coding enclosed by single quotation marks. It's just that the characters have to be the exact same, and that's very important when using strings. Now I'm going to show you how to assign a string to a variable and print it using the print function in a Python launcher. Go to our Python launcher. Let's define the variable a as a string. Let's say Python. Okay? And Python here, the string, is enclosed by double quotation marks. And let's print or display our variable Python. So let's print our variable a. Rerun the program. And look what we have here. So the launcher displayed Python. We can also replace Python with single quotation marks. Let's print it. Still Python. What about if we just take out the final single quotation mark and replace it with a double quotation marks? Let's run the program. Uh-oh, what happened? Well, this is known as a syntax error. And a syntax error means we have written something that is not the way it's supposed to be written as. In this case, remember, as I said before, strings can only be single quotes or double quotes. Here, we did a mix of single and double. That's not allowed in Python. You can even see it with the red line around it. That means it's wrong or it's a syntax error. And when we try to run it, we get a Python error. So when you're defining or using strings, always remember to keep the quotation marks the same, depending on your purpose. Otherwise, you will get an error. So let's say you want to create a paragraph in Python. There's one way to do it, by defining a variable to a string and creating a very long string that will go on forever and forever and forever to the right side of your screen, depending on how long your paragraph is. And you can print the string, but it's going to be very long and it's going to be inefficient and also hard to read for you and the user. So there's a different way to combat this problem called multiline strings. And in Python, multiline strings are used for multiple lines of strings or paragraphs that you want to create with strings. And in Python, you can assign a multiline string by enclosing it with 3 double quotation marks. like the example we see here. However, let's actually get into the launcher and do it ourselves, shall we? Now let's try to create a multi-line string. Before that, here is a definition of Python. If you search up the definition of Python, this is what Google will give you, and this is the basic idea of the programming language. Now I copy and pasted this to my Python launcher, and look how it came out. It became a straight line with no paragraph that does not have a paragraph format and no indentation. Just look at this. It goes on forever until it finishes. Let's say we want to print this. So we make it equal to a variable. Let's say A is our variable. And we enclose it with double quotation marks. Print this string. So we do print in our variable A. Let's run the program. And this is what it gives us. Now, again, you can read this. This is efficient. However, what if you had so many lines and you wanted to manage the string? You wanted to correct it. Well, you have to move the slider so many times to get to the end of your string. There's a way around this. We can create a multi-line string. Now, in order to create a multi-line string, we need to enclose it with 3 double quotation marks. So let's do it. Now, as soon as you do that, your string or everything after the 3 double quotation marks turns purple. And that means Python is identifying this as a multi-line string. Now, let's go to the end of our string and enclose it with 3 double quotation marks, because we don't want the print to be a part of our multi-line string, because then we can't print our string. And let's just indent this to create like a paragraph. And here we go. Now, let's print our variable now. Let's print the string. Look at that. All clean, looks indented, looks spaced, and it's very efficient to read. Now I'm going to show you a very simple and important example on how to define strings properly and when to switch between single and double quotation marks. Now, we have the variable A defined to a string. Now, right now it's empty. So let's put something in it. Let's say Python is important is an important programmer's tool. See here, I put an apostrophe separating the programmer and the S. However, look what happened. When you define a string in Python, well, in this launcher, it's supposed to show that the string is yellow. Now, it doesn't show that for the S and tool. Why? Well, the thing is, it's because I used a single quote inside my single quote string. Now, that does not work. Why? Because remember, Python recognizes strings when it's enclosed by single or double quotes. And in this case, our string is enclosed by single quotes. And I added an additional single quote into the string. So now Python recognizes the string from this single quote to the programmer to this single quote, but does not recognize the S and the tool. And when we run this, it gives us an error. Why? Because the S and tool are not enclosed by 2 single quotation marks. It's only enclosed by 1 at the end. If we add a single quotation mark here, the problem is solved. But then that's just repetitive and that's just inefficient. Now, let's say you want to use an apostrophe in your string. What should you do? Well, then you should switch to double quotation marks. You should enclose your string with double quotation marks. And the problem is solved. Look at this. See? Oh, we forgot to print it. That's print A. And here we go. Python is an important programmer's tool and include the S and tool. That's how you combat this problem. And that's how you know when you can switch between single quotations and double quotations. Okay? Now let's say you have a string. You define the string to a variable. and you want to access only one part of the string. You want, let's say for name, in this example, name equals John Doe, and you just want the J of John Doe. And we can access it in Python using square brackets, and we can index it using numbers. So how we tell Python to identify and access different letters, different singular letters using this method is by using numbers. And remember, in Python, we start with the default number 0. 0 is the first of basically any kind of counting system in Python. And 1 is actually not the first number, it's actually the second. Everything starts with 0. So if you want the first of anything, you need to start with 0. Now let's look at an example of accessing string elements. Here we have the variable a equal to hello world enclosed by double quotation marks. Now let's say I just want the capital H of hello world. We can do this by doing print a square brackets, and remember H is the first letter, so I write 0. I put in 0, and let's run the program, shall we? What do we get? We get capital H. Okay, let's say I want L, so we have to start counting. We want the first L, so we have 0, we have 1, and we have 2. So let's put in 2. Uh-oh, here we go. Sorry about that. And let's run the program. We get L, okay. Now, let's say if we put in 3, 4, 5. Let's say what happens when we put in 5, okay. We get nothing. Actually, it's not nothing. We get white space, because what's in the place of the index 5 in this string? Well, we have 0, we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4, and then we have 5 right here. That's white space. Remember, as I told you before, white space is also defined as a character of a string in Python. So remember that when you're indexing or trying to access the elements of your string. Now, string slicing is similar to accessing string elements like the previous slide. However, it's not limited to a singular character. Slicing can return a range of characters from a string. Now, in order to use string slicing, we need to specify a range of characters we need to take from a string. And we do that by specifying the starting and ending index of the range which we need. Now, let's look at the example here. We have a variable, product, equal to a string, television. And below it, we have the print function, print, bracket, product, square brackets, 1:5. Now, the starting index in this case is 1, the starting index of our string, and the ending index is 5, and it's separated by a colon. Now, remember, since we start counting in from 0 in Python, we're actually not taking the first character, we're taking the second character of our string, which is actually E. Also, just for slicing, the last number of our range, or just range, is actually non-inclusive. Just generally, a range in Python is non-inclusive to the last digit. So, what we're actually doing is we're taking a range from the second character to the fourth character, not the fifth character. So, if we print this out, we'll only get ELEV, not I, okay? Let's practice by doing an example so we can get more familiar with the string slicing method. Now, let's look at the Python launcher we have here. We have the variable name equal to a string, Tony Stark, enclosed by double quotations. Now, let's say I just want the word or the name Tony from the string, just Tony, not anything else. We use the string slicing method. So we first start out with our print function to display it, of course. And we do name. Same situation, we enclose it with square brackets. And remember, the first letter is 0, so we start with 0. Colon is basically like 0 to what? And remember, it's 0, 1, 2, 3. But since it's not inclusive, to our ending integer, we increase it by what? 4. So we actually need 4. So we print it, and here we go. We got Tony. Let's say I replace it with 3. I didn't increase it. No, we only get Ton. We don't get Tony. Remember, it's non-inclusive to the ending integer. And that only applies to the ending integer of the range, not the starting integer. We can replace this by, let's go to 9. Let's go to 9. Tony Stark. Tony Stark. Let's go to, let's say, what if I do 12? We get Tony Stark, okay? Let's say we go to 15. We still get Tony Stark. Okay. Well, 15 is actually not the ending character. There's not that many characters in our string. However, it just keeps adding white space. That's how it does for the slicing method. However, in some situations, if you access the range of a string or any other data type, if there's not enough characters pertain to your range, then you may result in a Python error. So be careful to actually look at your range and verify that it's actually matching the number of characters that you have in your data type. Okay, this is the end of part 1 on strings. Don't worry, we will continue with strings in part 2 of the 3-part mini-series. Until then, it is bye from Ashwin Tech Talks. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my video. If you did, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and also hit the bell icon to be notified on upcoming videos. Bye-bye!